What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and today I got a very special video here with the champion of the only OP09 Treasure Cup, I believe. I don't think there's any other event that's going to happen in OP09 until after Nats. Running Shanks, we got Mangley. How's it feel to be a winner?
It's kind of surreal, not gonna lie. Never won an actual event that size, topped before, but like winning is a totally different ball game. So yeah, it's kind of surreal right now, but I'm appreciating all of it. So yeah.
Dude, well deserved, well deserved. I know I know we've definitely talked on Twitter before and whatnot, and definitely who you were. Had to end my run on round 8. Sadly, man took me out. But what we literally were talking, and we're like, one of us, whoever wins this, is gonna win the whole thing, and we were right. So it worked out. Super happy for you, man. Let's go ahead. Do you remember what your matchups were?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I played a bunch of Dofies and Blackbeard in the beginning. I think the first 5 rounds, like the deck switching up, and after that it became quite a wide variety of decks, if I say so. Like I faced Enel, I think, on round 6. Then round 7 it was Purple Luffy. Then I faced you on round 8 in the mirror, and was my first mirror of the day. And then I played against Lucci in the semifinals, and then Bonnie at the end. So like meta in the beginning, and then still meta, but like going around a little bit, not a little bit more diverse.
Yeah, it was definitely the variety there. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the deck. I know you got some spice in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that has been asking around like with the deck and everything. So yeah, happy to go over it. So I mean, let's start by the obvious and the so not so obvious here. A lot of people have been asking about the event.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's number one. That's one of the. Yeah, tell us about it.
so I just wanted a deck that was as consistent as possible, and I felt like a lot of the cards I needed in my deck that I wanted to see were red air pirates for most of my game plan and matchups, and I felt like Uta wasn't enough for me to find them. Also, just adding those events made it so for me that I could cut some ratios for the top ends, especially like the 10 cost shanks. So overall, I wanted to try the event. I tested the full package, like 4-4, and then ended up like just cutting the ratios down to 2, and that's where I was sitting there. So yeah, just Uta and the event, Search Your Radar engine, just overall felt super great, super consistent. Every time I had one of those into my opening end and some of the top end I wanted to see, this just made it so much easier for me to keep and just roll through my deck. So yeah, I'm really happy that I was running the event as well as the Uta. So I think it really performed for me and for the game plan that I had going on yesterday. So.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So, what is overall like the game plan? Is the goal like consistent curves, or you like you want to hit this, you want to hit that? I know like the best thing about the deck is it's like really fluid based on the situation. Did you have pretty much like, oh, my goal is to play this on 1, swing 8 on 3, and then 5 play that Yasopp, or like how is it like? What was the thought process like going into the overall with consistency in mind?
Oh, definitely. I really had a game plan for pretty much every deck that I thought I was going to face in the meta. And you are right. Like the goal was for me to curve out as much as I could. That's why I have the Yasopps. That's why I have the Ben and the Whitebeards that I'm gonna talk about later. But yeah, my goal was to just curve out, and in testing against Dofi and Purple Luffy, two of my good friends performed really well on those decks too yesterday. So we play tested a lot, and what came up really is that Yasopp was kind of like the old anchor of those matchups for me. Like taking first from them and getting that Yasopp out really made a difference. So I really tried to emphasize on this and getting that curve for me, and it worked out great. So yeah, I did have a plan. I did have a curve that I wanted to hit as much as I could, and I think that's where like I feel for me Shank's fine, because if you miss kind of your curve and everything, you don't have much board presence until like turn 4, and even then, like if you're going second, sometimes your your plays are not as good. So I just felt like I wanted that curve. I wanted to see something every time and not be like stuck with dawns and not doing anything. So overall, with 6 searchers, I felt like I had a decent shot to just, like I said, open with cards and get my curve and fix it. Like if I was missing a 7-drop, I would just go try to hunt for that. If my hand was top heavy, I would just try to go and hunt for 2Ks and just, try to filter everything and make it so that I have a okay end every time. I mean, power level wise, I think it's still really good, but I think the consistency was what I was looking for yesterday. So, and I think it worked out great for me.
Got it. Amazing. Well, let's keep going.
Yeah, so searcher engine out of the way. I'll jump into, I'll say the Redder package on its own, like the most usual cards you're going to see, which I think are those three group of cards there. So Yasopp, I mean, for me was kind of the all-star there. I really wanted a card that was going to help me fix my Dofi and Purple Luffy matchup, and in testing, Yasopp just came as the superior 5-drop for me, and for those matchup particularly. Like, I know it's not as good against Blackbeard, I know it's not as good against certain decks. Like, Marco is just another really good 5-drop. Ace, a lot of people have been playing Ace, and they like it. So, for me in testing, I found out that Yasopp was covering more of my bad matchups and making it not only like bearable, but I would not say favored, but like a gave me a decent chance. So yeah, Yasopp has been the reason why I was running more events and just overall as well. Like those other two cards are really, really powerful, but like Yasopp finding it on curve and dropping it against Purple Luffy and Dofi just made it so that I would not get too much pressure on the following turn, and then I can jump onto my 7 curve, and that's where like usually I start to get board control. So yeah, Yasopp was definitely really, really good, and it's also not too bad against a bunch of other decks. Like you get an extra like 1k power, you develop a body that reduces. Like if you want to fight for board or just still swing, I mean it's not the best, but it's still average all the time and just really, really good against those key matchups, which I feel like they were to be represented. Like they're super popular decks, and Dofi has to be like the best deck in the meta so far. So I wanted that to be covered. Ben is just the good on curve play. I mean, I prefer the Whitebeard for certain reasons, but I think Ben having it be in the engine, it's just an overall great card. It's not a brick, so that really helps, and it just does an okay job every time. I mean, there's not a lot of time where I'm just playing Ben and it's not doing what I need it to do. And yeah, it being not a brick makes the whole a really good difference, and it being in the engine with 6 searchers, either with this and the Whitebeards, I was able to always have like a 7-drop play. So that really ended up working for me. So Ben just overall good, and 10 cost Shanks. I mean, people enjoy this card a lot. It's a really powerful card, but I felt like at 4 for me with all the searchers I had, like I did not want to clutter my hand too much with bricks and 10 cost that I am gonna play at least once. Like I want to hit it on 10 if I can, and I'm in a good position. And after that, like sometime the second one is just win more, but I need ways to find that one Shanks on curve. And like I said, with the 6 searchers, if my hand was already like my curve was good, I was just gonna try to search my top end with that. And if I had my top end, I'm going back into my curve when I'm searching. So I mean, at 3, it felt like the ratio was fine, and it did not end up being like too much in my hand. I had it when I wanted it. Sometimes I missed it, like I think once or twice, but there was other plays that I could play that was just as efficient in those games. So I think for me, if when I'm running like 6 searchers like this, 3 felt fine. Otherwise, I could have bumped it up to 4 if I was only on Uta. But that's why I like the event. It was like it allowed me to just try to fix up the ratios and include some text. So yeah, at 3 Shanks felt fine, and it's a powerhouse of a card, so I can't complain if I see it with my searches. So yeah, so that's basically the core of the Red Air Pirates. The others are like I think are techs, like the Lucky Ruse and Building Snake that I'm gonna jump into, but like those I think are the cornerstone of the
Yeah,
deck.
yeah. No, I actually won't even disagree that because I know you're playing the other 10 Shanks. Even without, I think 3 is of the 10 drop is actually fine. I there was instances where I had too many in hand, and I also like my last 2 life were 2 10 Shanks, and so I pulled 0 counter out of it, which was big unfortunate. Uh, it didn't like super matter in most of my games, but I could see me just playing 3 of it. One thing though, especially since I know you mentioned Yasopp with Dofi on 5, like, do you really think that the 1k that Yasopp gives you is worth it more than if you were to just have, because of Jozu, to have like Ace to where Ace can't be removed, and then so you get to keep that body. Do you really think like was in any of your Dofi matchups did it ever come down to like you played Yasopp and they did like Jozu, or like what was your thought process with still going with like Yasopp, knowing that Jozu is really good?
To be honest, I do think that people that are experienced in the Shank matchups, especially if they're facing like a more control version, let's say it like this, if they play Jozu on their 6th turn, I think they're, even if they're bouncing back my Yasopp, the fact that I'm not getting pressured is way better than having something stick. So if they're baited into playing Jozu, I'm not that I'm happy, but I kind of am. I'd rather like have them play Jozu and not pressure me at all, and then I'm still gonna end up winning board. So like from testing, me just playing this and them playing Jozu always felt bad for them in the later stages because there's no way they're gonna win board overall, like at the end of the game. Like they need to put pressure on in the earlier stages, so I'm kind of forced down to 2 life, down to 1 life at some point, depending on what my life gave me and how my hand is doing. Sometimes I just can't really take like I just can't really endure like big hits, and if they develop all their dons to bounce back my Yasopp, I'm getting back that counter. They did not pressure me out of any cards, and I'm still like feeling healthy. Usually, I should be at around 4 to 5 life, depending on how I countered, and they don't like do much. So after that, on 7, I just either pop one of their dudes, and I have the strong, like equal or strongest board, and then it just kind of adds up. So I don't think Jozu for them is that good to play. I think me bumping up to 6 if they don't play the Jozu and they just, try to establish more board or swing like okay numbers. I think that Yasopp usually when I play it, it will end up for me like losing at least one card. It mostly a 2K sometimes, just losing one card and losing 1 life. So like I'm still happy being at 4 or 3 life and with a bunch of cards in my hand still, and them not asking me for too many cards before my big turn, which is usually on 7 if I'm going first. So I think Yasopp really that 1K makes it so that I'm super healthy going into my bigger drops. So that's what I'm aiming for in that matchup. And like I said, if they play Jozu, I'm kind of happy to do this because they're not pressuring me out of any cards and out of any life. So I'm like at 4 or 5 still, and my hand is kind of healthy. So I can just try to bank on my bigger drops, and then you, like I said, Shanks, Beckman, Whitebeard, Rayleigh, Dragon, like those cards cannot be beaten by Dofi on board, like because of their stats and what they do. So it's really hard for them to bounce back. And if they don't get my life, it's just over. So yeah, I take the Josu bait if they want it. Like I think it's just better for me if they do so.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I don't think you're. When you put it like that, I can see why you would make that decision. Yeah. Let's keep going.
So now we get into the text a little bit. Like I know a lot of people have been asking about the ruse and about the building snake and that one pop shanks. For me, those felt all good. Lucky Roo is really good against Purple Luffy. It's also pretty good against Black. It's not a card that you play on curve. A lot of people are like, oh, but on curve it usually gets bounced and everything. I don't think you want to play this on curve. It's more of a I'm in control of the game and I need to just secure a win, like, and me not dying type of card. And so I usually play it at the end, unless I'm playing, like I said, against Purple Luffy, which where it's not a bad card at all, even if you drop it on curve, because it will trade for something else and it will slow the game down. So that's usually where it shines. And even against Black, if they try to remove it via anything that KOs, you ask for something back. So it's kind of good there. Building Snake is just a really annoying card for a lot of people. Like it's just you can play it early and stick it there if there's no way for them to remove it, and it will make them do either bad decisions or it will help you trade into stuff. Like you don't have to combo it with like anything sometimes. I've used it in a couple of games where I would just use it and it with my Uta blocker, like my Uta searcher, sorry, and ask for cards with my searcher that was just left there, and people are just not usually appreciating this, getting asked for cards with this, and if I can combo it, then that's great. Against like decks like I played against NL, I played against, if against Bonnie, against Purple Luffy. This card just, helps you reach those higher numbers. So I think it's pretty good. And it felt like I was able to see it when I needed it. In the finals, it kind of won me the game. I did dig 10 cards deep to try and find it because I knew I could Lime Juice is Basil Lock-in with it, but that was one of the reasons why I digged 10 cards. It was for that particularly, and it was good there. But overall, I think it's just an annoying card for a lot of decks, and I think it too with 6 searches. I think it's a good placement, and this was mostly for the mirror. I think it's a really good mirror card when you're going second. If
Yeah, it
the
is.
Yeah, like if you're going second and you're able to get it, you will eat their 8 cost that they dropped like the turn before. Like if they had a good curve, and I mean, if you have a dragon on 9 and you're playing Shanks, you will drop your dragon. Like I don't think you will withhold that in fear of like a pop Shanks. Not a lot of people are running it anymore, but with 6 searches, it does kind of make sense now, because you will be able to find it sometimes in matchups where it's good, and if it's not, you just don't take it when you see it with your searches. So it's never really in your hand unless you natural draw it, which is not that likely with one. And when it's good, you can find it. So like in L, I found it. I was able to remove like a big body against, even in my semifinals against Lucci, did not have a good curve and did not see his jack on curve, so I was able to take it away from him right after he played it. And just in the mirror overall, I think it's really good in going second, but I think it's just a good card nonetheless in those particular scenarios. Bonnie as well, I think it's pretty good. So yeah, it shines in certain matchups. One of with 6 searches, I felt like this made sense for me for those decks. So yeah, those are my red air decks.
Yeah, no, I played 3 Building Snake, and one of the things that I did, it was absolutely nasty. It was against Dofi, and I'd actually established 2 just because like my other threats and I had the extra Dawn, so I went ahead and like 2 different turns established them. And then once they turned their cards sideways, it was just like Zoro with Gordon. I'm bottom decking one. I minused their law by 3. Then I took the other one, turned it sideways, swung at the law, demanded a card, and then they gave me a card. And then I bottom decked that one, minus Weevil, made it a 3K, and then I just like swung like 5-6 into them, cleared them. But that
Yeah,
extra Binding Snake literally just gave me a free card. Like the combos were just really, really good. And it came up like I would, you use it. I played Marco's, so you could use it Marco
yeah.
Pop, which is why I played 3. But I could totally see the reasoning behind 2.
Oh, definitely. Marco with this is also really, really good. I just felt like I did not have the space for Marco. Like later during like the deck, there's one card that I switched for Marco because I used to play 2, but I felt like it was not that great anyway. Like every time I could have a Yasopp instead of a Marco, I was just playing Yasopp anyway. So, and then my later curve is just better than Marco. So I figured like if I'm not playing it when I have it compared to Yasopp, then why is it in my deck? But I did play with it, and I think Marco is a really other good 5-drop. I think it's better than Ace for me. And with Building Snake, you can have some potential crazy removal turns. So yeah, I do get it, and I like Building Snake at 2. 3 can be done as well. But I like those ratios since I had 6 searchers. So yeah.
Got it, got it. Yeah, let's keep going.
And yeah, that was also a point of contention, like in comments and everything on YouTube and just like on Twitter, but like people talking about my split for this. I think overall I was happy with like 3 and 3 for Dragon and Rayleigh. I think they both do certain things really well. I kind of like Dragon a little bit more for some reason. I think you sometimes can either clear a board with Dragon and you can just pressure because it has rush, and in certain matchups you will try to just pressure it with him, and really doesn't really do that. He's just the best cleaning up tool you have, but I like the versatility like that Dragon offers. So um, I don't know. I wanted to see them in certain matchups. That's why I decided to go 3-3. I could see myself go 4 dragons, 2 Rayleighs. But both of those cards are really, really good. Like I said, I wanted to be consistent. I wanted to not be like cluttered with bricks. So me like not playing 4-4 made sense, especially since I have another like playset of like 7-drop that doesn't have counter. I wanted to streamline this, and make it so that I can play more 2Ks. So yeah, but those two really, really great cards. Any, I just think depending on what you're hoping to face, both are gonna have their values. This is gonna be like better against Blackbeard for sure, and the black decks, and this will just be better against Dofi. It's also pretty good against anything that's board centric. So purple Luffy, uh, even in, like in the mirror, certain cases you will just drop this, help you clear board. It's those are just overall good cards. But I do have a preference for Dragon. I think it's one of the all stars of the deck, and just the color itself, when it's red, it's one of the better cards. So yeah, those worked fine for me.
Got it, got it. Yeah, no, makes sense, makes sense. Especially because you're playing the seven. So yeah, let's keep it. Let's take a look at the rest of this spice here. They're
We'll
hiding.
go over this like quickly, but
Yeah,
like those are like the 2K packages that I
yeah.
played. I mean, if I'm running 6 searchers, there's no way I'm not running like eight of the eight red air 2Ks. I was running one bad kick because I had like 14 bricks total. I felt like at one I was fine with this. I would have not played more. And I wanted, because 2Ks are usually better than a bad kick because you can only commit one card, especially with leader effect. Like 2Ks are really worth it. So that's why I wanted to go for a little bit of a higher amount, even if I'm playing the red hair, because a lot of people are not playing as many 2Ks when they're running an engine. The list that we're not running any searches, mostly like Noel's list that was kind of popular for a while, running like 16. Even his first iteration was running like 17 2Ks. I thought that was a little bit too much. There was sometimes where I had done games with this, but with that amount, I felt happy. Otama is good in certain spaces, but usually it's mostly a 2K. And Sanji though was really, really good against Blackbeard in some like slower matchups, like against Enel for me, also really did some work. And that's why I decided to go with three and not do the usual 4 to 2 that I've been seeing. I could have seen myself run four Soundgs, because I know it shines in certain matchups, and even then, like Otama, it's mostly a 2K most of the time. So, but yeah, that's just basic stuff. Lime Juice was kind of an all-star also yesterday. Like it did surprise a bunch of people, I think. Early in the meta like this, people are not used to this interaction. It does a pretty powerful effect, negating a blocker for the turn, and it did come up Andy against Lucci. I mean, I think I had the Lucci game in the semifinals pretty much wrapped, but this just made it so much easier, like just going for Matt Lethal. And against Bonnie, it was a pretty good card. In fact, it made me win. So, yeah, really good 2Ks. So nothing, nothing much to say there. It's just bunch of 2Ks. It synergizes well with your leader ability. I think you need to play a bunch of them, and not too many bad kick manners. If you don't have like as many bricks as I have, like I only have 14, so I think it felt fine. So yeah, 14 2Ks, one bad kick. Nothing really that insane there. Uh, and yeah, the rest of the deck, those two are kind of just filler. I'll say it like this. Like I was playing Marco first. And I figured like I'm not playing Marco when I want to play it and when I should play it. I felt like Yasopp was better, and then I was like, why not just put in two more blockers? This blocker is really good in the later game stages of the game on bricks, and it's not bounceable by law, so it felt good from time to time. Otherwise, it's just a generic card, and it's there when it's good when it's good, and otherwise it's just a 1K. So like it felt fine to include it, and then that's the last part of the deck, and a lot of people have been like wondering why I was playing this, but it really did work out good for me in the matchups I wanted to. So against Purple Luffy and Dofi, this was a really, really good card. Even against Blackbeard, it's not too bad as well, just because it does something when it enters, and it just removes stuff from them. So yeah, it was a Newgate was really, really good for me, especially against Dofi and Purple Luffy. So it with Yasopp, this just made like my going first curve really, really good. And having four of Beckman, like made it so that I always had a 7 drop to play on curve, and I was not missing out on powerful plays. And I think it wrapped up my deck pretty nicely. And I just think it's a really powerful card. Like it will stick most of the time. It's not going to be removed, and it offers you a ton of like variety. It can combo with Building Snake. It can sometimes it just combos like with even the 10 cost Shanks, but overall it's just a nice drop that works with Yasopp the best, and then it's a 8 key beater. I mean, It's just overall a pretty good value card, and it works in your, I think, not your bad matchups. I think like when you tech it like this, Dofi is doable and purple Luffy is fine, but overall that's what I was aiming to do with this. Just have a good, better matchup against those two. And yeah, it did just fine with this. It did put in a lot of work in those matchups.
Yeah. So, question about the Newgate. I know you
Yep.
mentioned it helping against Ploofy. Is it specifically good when you have Yasopp to partner with it, or
Yes.
if you okay? Because then you get the KO like the 6K off of Luffy, Taro, the Sangoro.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Like kid, if you took first, sometime they will like just drop a kid on turn two by ramping, dropping kid blocker. It gives them a lot of value also on the following turn. So you having this makes it so that you can remove kid or Sangoro, depending on which one you prefer. I think Sangoro usually is the one you want to see go because card advantage is really really good in this game. But yeah, with Yasopp it's really good. And if I didn't have my Yasopp, I was just transitioning into Ben Beckman instead because it kind of does the same purpose, but this one does hit harder a little bit. It gives you more value instantly as well with the extra Dawn you get on play. And it does, yeah, it does pair up really, really well with Yasopp. So that's why I ended up playing six searches. I think Yasopp was kind of the the best card of my deck, and I played around it for my like bad matchups or the most important matchups for me. Felt like it was going to be Dauphin Purple Luffy just for popularity and just power overall. And when you see the numbers, I think the tournament had, those were really first good, like good represented decks, and also they converted nicely. So I think it was a good call for me then. But yeah, it was good with Yasopp against Purple Luffy. Against Dofi, it always does something anyway. So like if I don't have the Yasopp, which is kind of unfortunate, and it's not something I want to do, but if I don't have Yasopp, at least it does remove a body all the time, and the Dawn can go onto my leader, and I can ask for a card. So it will usually does do something. But paired with Yasopp against Dofi, it's really really strong, and you know you're gonna have recursion every time. And it's not to be underestimated that even if you like use it on the first turn, on the following turns, Dofi will try to replenish its board, and this doesn't care about it standing or being rested. So you can kind of like beat that plan. Like Beckman is good, it removes something once, but then if they just like don't care about their board, they just swing you big and replenish like three characters that's standing, you don't have much to do against them outside of hitting their face. This will, keep grinding their active board, and it felt really good doing so.
Got it. Got it. Well, perfect. Well, that's all with the deck. I did have a couple more questions I'd like to ask you here.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, with, of course, it seems like you're big on the first. What is your ideal curve? Do you prefer to go first and second? And, like, there's big meta matchups like Ploofy, Dofi, Blackbeard, Lucci. Are you going first, going second?
Usually for Purple Luffy and Dofi, it felt better for me to go first. I know a lot of people I mean, I'm not playing the Red Hawks. I'm not playing like that's a. It kind of felt awkward for me, like to just go second against them. As well as I think Dofi really is stronger for against Shanks when it goes first, because your first play is always going to be swinging me with a big number, and if I don't have the exact Red Hawk, if I'm playing it in hand, then I will lose card or lose a life. And so me taking the first from them makes it so that they're not as aggressive with their plays, and it kind of just tends up like it just plays better with my curve. So yeah, going first for against Dofi felt really good because Yasopp on curve makes it so that they can't really damage me on the following turn. Like they will most probably at best take a life from me in one card, but if you don't play Yasopp, sometimes you just end up being two life sometimes. Like you will fall down quickly, and then good Dofis will just keep on the pressure, and they will swing bigger numbers and ask you for for cards. They will notice what you have, how you countered, and they will just try to pummel you before you can have like control of the board, and that's what really matters. So for me, going first was the key there, and for Purple Luffy, I think it's just a matter of like their curve is really really good going first, so you take it away from them, and you're kind of playing to the strength of your deck. So overall, it made the most sense. Blackbeard is a matchup that's kind of weird. I think it can go either way, either first or second. I think overall I just prefer going first because I get the attack in a little bit faster, and I can develop a 12 Shanks after they played their first teach. So they play teach on my dragon, they try to freeze it, and I play my Shanks afterward. If they don't have the exact response for this, they're not in a good position. And me seeing a5 cost, a 7 drop, like on curve, they need specific answers for this. So, and it's just overall you're a little bit more the aggressor when you're going first. So I kind of prefer first against Blackbeard, but it can go either way. It's a special matchup, I think. With this version, Dragon is going to be key, and just Sanji felt really, really good against them. And sometimes you just have to flood the board, man. Like if you're ahead and you made some good pressure, sometimes on my 10 dons, I don't even drop Shanks. I just drop a bunch of little dudes, and if they have the 10 cost and that's all they have, then they just die with fives. Like that's usually what I do. I try to swarm them and go in numbers and not going tall. So yeah, going first really worked out for me with this list.
Got it. Got it. Well, amazing. What do you think is the worst matchup for the deck?
The worst matchup has to be, I think Lucci's not really nice, or pure black decks. I think they're really good at removing one thing at a time, especially like Smoker. I was happy to dodge Smoker at the end. I will say it. I think Lucci and Smoker is not nice. Unironically, I think RP Luffy, so red purple Luffy,
That
is
is, yeah. I would
is
agree
kind of
with you.
scary for some reason. I do have some friends that played it against me. I faced some in the ranked queues. There's some, I don't know why it's that cursed, but this feels really rough. Uh, but then again, like red purple Luffy does have its its own issues as a deck, but against Shanks it does fairly well. I also think purple Luffy is not easy when they take first. So I mean that's where the release comes in. That's where the Lucky Ruse comes in. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just a powerful deck if they get their curve, and they're pretty consistent at it usually.
I
But yeah, I
gave.
think Black and RP Luffy are kind of weird decks. I don't know about, like, I've never played against Nami with this on ranked anyway. I think a lot of people are scared of like going back to Nami. I don't know how it feels against Nami. It has to be not as, I don't think we're fast enough to do anything. I think Sanji 2 cost is really really efficient against Nami, so I would try to go for that. But yeah, those have to be like the worst matchups for it. Otherwise, I think we have a pretty nice spread of like 50-50s. So, and that's usually what I try to aim for with my decks. I try to have like a decent shot against everything and try to play the player, not like the deck. There's nothing worse than just facing a matchup that feels like it's 80-20 and you're just losing to RNG. So that's what this deck felt like it gave me, a good matchup spread overall.
I would agree. I would agree. Yeah. No, I played against the Nami and Sanji put in work. I played him on two and I used to. I had like one life. So I was like, if they just go 15-15, I might lose, but I probably win if they tap 15 Dons. So I'm like, it was a very questionable state. But yeah, I used the heck out of Sanji. Purple. Red Purple Luffy it just does what we want to do but better because they're six, so they already
Yeah.
have the auto 1k against everything, and they ramp to 10 way before we do, and so
Yep.
they're just like one step ahead in everything that our deck wants to do, which is why I think it's just so hard because they're
Yeah.
just more efficient at doing our game plan because all of our cards are their cards, and then
Yep.
they play purple
Basically.
cards. Yeah, it's like, oh great. But no, yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time. Do you have any shout outs?
I do have a bunch. I made a bunch on Twitter, but like all my homies from Quebec, because I'm from Quebec City, from my locals, I'm not gonna name them, but you guys know who you are. Shout out to the people from Cross the Ice Discord. I've been in that community for a while. I think ever since the game started. So shout out to the guys over there. There's too many to name drop. Shout out to special shout out to Eric Quintana and Richard Yam, who I've been testing a lot. Shanks in the past few weeks, really trying a bunch of different lists, a bunch of different versions, and I think overall they really were a part of my success yesterday. Shout out to Zent as well, which is a good friend of mine. We tested the Purple Luffy matchup. We discussed a bunch about the meta, so shout out to him. And shout out to my coach, Impact. I mean, Impact has always been a really good friend, but also a really good inspiration and model, and just an overall really good coach. So yeah, I think that summarizes it, man.
Amazing, amazing. Well, congrats again, and thanks for the
Thank you
video.
so much. Yeah, thank you, man.